Good evening and thank you for joining us on the program Capital Market. I'm Tempula Shaju. Let's begin with an exciting news from one of the listed companies based in Nnewi, Anambra State. All is now set for the commencement of AdSwitch Nigeria takeover as shareholders of Kiotics Nigeria PLC have approved the acquisition of the erstwhile listed company. In a notice to the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Kiotics reports that the takeover plan is to enhance its business expansion and boost profitability. The resolution, which was at the just concluded annual meeting of the company, shows that directors now have the permission to enter into agreements with the management of AdSwitch Nigeria Limited with a view to effect the acquisition plans. At the recently held annual meeting of Kiotics, shareholders approved the payment of 12 naira 50 kobo per ordinary share for the calendar year ended April the 30th, 2019. And consumer goods giant Nigerian Breweries is proposing a dividend of 50 kobo per ordinary share of 50 kobo each to its shareholders. That's in spite of a negative 9 months profit of 12.27 billion naira from 14.78 billion naira in the corresponding period for the period ended September 30th, 2019. The brewers' cost of sales settled at a negative of 139.50 billion naira as excise duty expense for the period rose from 16.93 billion naira to 24 billion naira. Revenue for the period moved up to 259 billion naira. But like other major brewers in the sector, Nigerian Breweries is yet to transfer the burden of its excise duties hike to consumers, a development that has consistently impacted the financial performances of several other local manufacturers in recent times. And Unity Bank this week also joins the league of companies that turned in their 9 months financials to report a 20% increase in gross income of 31.25 billion naira. And the lender posted an interest income of 26.15 billion naira, representing a jump of 28% from 20.50 billion naira from the base year. Profits for the period is positive, moving higher to 1.48 billion naira compared to the 600 million naira declared in the initial statements, while earnings per share more than doubled at 18 naira 38 kobo. And it looks like Unity Bank is now back in profit, fully back in profit, I should say. Well, the Nigerian Stock Exchange this week concluded its Ideas Innovation Contest tagged X-Kathon with the selection of some top winners, top 3 winners precisely. The hackathon is the first of its kind in the Nigerian capital market, and it targets the retail sector, especially the millennials who are less interested in the securities markets generally. But after this ceremony, we engaged the exchange's head of Enterprise Innovation Hub, Mr. John Nsikak, who tells us how the winners emerged and what's next on the program. Let's listen.
Most of the teams were able to deliver, convince the jury, within their 3 minutes. And I would say it was a stiff competition. You could see what Nigerian creativity
edition of the hackathon in the stock exchange. We do hope that they sustain that particular program. Well, recapitalization is the latest buzzword in the insurance markets today, and it's to the regulatory demand from the National Insurance Commission, which aims to renew the confidence of Nigerians as well as local and foreign investors in the sector. While the scramble for investors goes on till the end of June the 30th, 2020, we'll speak to the Chief Executive of Pan-African Underwriter, NSE Insurance, Mrs. Ebelechukwu Nwachiku, who is confident that her firm will list on the Nigerian Stock Exchange in the future.
The shareholders, the existing shareholders in the first instance are very committed to complying very quickly, so the customers are comfortable. And then we're also bringing in more interested investors, to partner with us. So we will definitely comply, and we'll comply in good time.
Do you have private equity investors you're looking at to also partner on this recapitalization?
Okay, so the group NSE really was set up as there's a lot of families in the partnership that set up group NSE. Now, when families are in business, there's long-term focus. Okay, so for the recapitalization, we would prefer to have more individuals, to have more groups that are Nigerian, because NSE is more foreign than Nigerian, but we also would welcome private equity companies as well in the process.
And as part of your sustainability plans and getting the company to live beyond today, are you looking at possibly listing something like it? Because I know that the NSE is actually listed in Cote d'Ivoire.
Yes.
That's the group that's
Yes. So yes, we will be listed in the future. We'll finish the recapitalization. We'll, execute a lot of our strategies to make sure that when we list, we get oversubscribed. That will be our focus.
There's no particular market in consideration right now. Is it Nigeria? Will it be Cote d'Ivoire?
It will be Nigeria. It's our country.
So the stock exchange should be looking forward to
They should be waiting for us. We're coming. Yes.
Okay, so you have presence all around the world. In Africa, you're very, very dominant. I'm wondering, with the AFCFTA, the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement that is having a timeline of June 2020, what are some of the plans and strategies that you have in place?
NSE at the moment operates in 12 African countries, so we are positioned to, take advantage of the, trade agreement that is currently being implemented. We are set for the future.
Okay, so on a final note, what are your plans for retail insurance? Micro insurance is something that is playing out in the Nigerian market right now. Are you looking at delving into that as well?
Yes. So we recently just set up a retail center. Retail is a major focus for us. We're executing a digital strategy. Doing retail business is long-term business. You have to plan, and you have to plan to stay, and you have to develop alternative channels of distribution, loads and loads of alternative channels of distribution. We're in the process of doing that. DSTV is one of those alternatives that we have. We're developing so many others. And, our products, our services, and our channels will unveil as time goes on. But we are in the process of making sure that retail microinsurance becomes the rock of our company.
Mrs. Ebelechukwu Nwachiku, the Chief Executive Officer of NSE Insurance, hoping to get listed in the stock exchange post-recapitalization. Well, after the break, we'll show you how women swung into action with results in the Nigerian stock exchange. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the program. This is Capital Market Live, right here on Channels Television. Well, the National Council of the Nigerian Stock Exchange is made up of 13 members, 10 of which are men, and the 3 others are women, thanks to the advocacy efforts of women in management, business, and public service. That's WIMBIS, for making that happen, actually. Well, we had the privilege of meeting with WIMBIS chairperson of the Board of Trustees, in person of Mrs. Funmi Roberts, after sounding the closing gong of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. And she tells us how it all started and why it's necessary to take the crusade further, especially to the boards of companies.
The focus has always been anything to elevate the profile of women in management, business, and public service. We added public service to it a couple of years back because the pushback we got from those who attended was that Wimby seems to be only about women in business and management. They wanted women in public service.
So it becomes all-encompassing.
Exactly.
Public sector.
So what we then did was to also then create another platform for women in public service. That's called WIMPOL. Now, women in management, we created a platform of engagement for them, which is WIMBOARD, Women on Board. And I must say that the NSE has been fantastic in its support for that. And I'll share with you that in about 2 years ago, the entire membership of the Board of Trustees of WIMBIS paid a courtesy call to the Council of NSE as part of our advocacy visits. And what we found out, and the reason why we did that was because in 2012, we conducted a survey of all the publicly quoted companies in Nigeria, as well as 20 high revenue generating companies in Nigeria. And we looked at the boards of those companies and realized that there are very few women on those boards. I think for the chairmanship of publicly quoted companies, we had less than 1%. Executive directors, less than 3%. And then strategically, we invited the then governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria to launch the figures at our annual lecture. And his comment was that until he saw the figures, figures speak to you, the visuals, because no matter how hard you make the campaign, until people see it in visual, it sometimes doesn't sink home. And then he saw the figures, and it's like, for the first time, it dawned on him that you mean the figures are this dismal? And he decided to do something about it. And we felt that if we could just replicate this across board, because the focus for him was on bank boards. And if you look at the composition of bank boards now, the number of women have risen because of the policy that at least 30% representation of women on the board and 40% in top management. So we decided that no, we can't limit it to bank boards alone. We have to take this across board. And we then decided to partner with the Nigerian Stock Exchange, because if you're a publicly quoted company, you must engage with them. So we held a meeting with the council members, but in the course of preparing for that meeting, we realized that even the council members had only one woman on its board. But the response from the council was significant. And a couple of months down the line, Mr. Aigi Mokwede, the then chairman of the council, or president of the council, then told me that, Mrs. Roberts, we've acted on your request and we've admitted 2 more women onto the council of the Nigerian Stock Exchange. To us, that is a significant landmark. And then we said, we can't stop there, because the message needs to be spoken about over and over again. So we said, to flag off this conference, we're going to request to sound the gong, the closing gong at the NSE. And the reason why is because no female organization has ever done it before. And we want this to be a strong message to our men who occupy the boards of those companies, that women need to be in partnership with them. And sometimes when we talk about this, people think that for us it's because we want a seat at the table. No, that's not it. It is a developmental issue for us, because the decisions taken at those board meetings have repercussions for everybody down the value chain. If you make a decision to sack, for example, 10% of the members of the company because you're not making a profit, it affects not only your staff, it affects the mother, the father, the child, the wife, the cousins, those people who depend on him. So for us, it's about working as a collaboration with the men, and let us make the right decisions. You know what I sometimes do when I see a man and he talks against or call us mere women, as a politician did a couple of days ago, ridiculous as that is. And I ask him, did you send your child to England for school? And yes, I did. Oh, I didn't, but my child went to the University of Lagos, I usually know that that child is a daughter. And then I ask, what do you want that child to be when he grows up, when she grows up? Oh, I want her to be the governor of Central Bank. Oh, I want her to be a professor. And then I ask, if you make the kind of decisions you make today, your child, that daughter that you've spent so much money educating, is not going to be where you want her to be.
That's Mrs. Fumi Roberts, the chairperson of the Board of Trustees for WIMBIZ, Women in Business, Management and Public Service. Well, before we go, let's quickly review the markets, beginning with the NASD, which is the NASD OTC. The unlisted securities markets was positive for the week, up some 0.29%. And we saw the market capitalization closing higher at 499.72 billion naira, after we saw gains around Afriland closing at 2 naira 20 kobo, rising by some 1.85%. The top loser for the week was CSCS, that's the depository of the capital markets, which shed some 3.07% and closed lower, that's just 12 naira. And for the equity market, all-share index was down 0.38% this week to 26,348.73. The equity capitalization also fell lower to 12.826 trillion naira. That's after a flurry of unimpressive results that came into the market and didn't do any good to investor sentiment by helping them to, as usual, put more funds in the market. But activity level for volumes stood at 2.051 billion. And of course, that's valued at 16.126 billion naira for the entire week. We have deals totaling 13,508 for the entire week. And of course, in terms of the sectoral performances, the banking segment of the market was down by 0.40% for the week, in spite of the earnings released so far by the likes of Access Bank, FBN Holdings, Guarantee Trust Bank, and a host of others, including UBA. We saw consumer goods for this week dipping some 0.60% as well. And of course, the industrial goods segment of the market was down by more than 1%, 1.51% precisely. The insurance segment, which in year-to-date terms has actually been very positive, was down by 1.47%, in spite of the fact that the insurance companies were the key performers in terms of gainers for the markets this week. Insurance segment was down by more than 1%. And the oil and gas, with the earnings that came in from Mobile PLC of 11 PLC, as well as Total PLC, all these put together drove down the oil and gas segment indices by 0.30%. And of course, if we go further, we know that the personal care segment, which falls under the consumer goods segment of the market, was also down 0.70%. The foods giants were down as well. Foods subsector was down by 0.19% generally. And of course, the telecoms, which are often major movers in the markets, didn't do much good to the markets this time. Well, as we coast home now, you should remember that next week, the Securities and Exchange Commission will be launching the FinTech Roadmap regulations. And of course, that will hold on Tuesday next week. You should watch out for that, because on Channels Television, your news leader will make it happen for you to see. And that's it on the program for this evening. I'm Temple Ashaju. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.